Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Singapore Sport Science Symposium 2020. I'm Matthew from the National Youth Sports Institute, and I've got the honour of kicking off the symposium this year. The symposium is jointly hosted by the National Youth Sports Institute and the Singapore Sport Institute. Over the next 4 days, we will have a great lineup covering two strands. The first strand, the Youth Athlete Development Conference, focuses on how we can strengthen the multiple pathways for our youth athletes. And Strand 2 will focus on high performance development and the support of Team Singapore athletes. To officially open the Singapore Sport Science Symposium 2020, may I invite Mr Eric Chua, Parliamentary Secretary of the Ministry of Culture, Community and Youth, to give the welcome address. Mr Chua, please.
Thank you very much, Matthew. And Chairman of Sport SG, CEO of Sport SG, members of the Association of Sports Institute Asia, participants of the Sports Science Symposium, a very good morning to all of you. I'm very delighted to join you this morning for the 2020 Sports Science Symposium. Now, the theme for this year is From Youth to Elite. This is a topic that's close to my heart as I strongly believe in supporting the aspirations of our youth athletes, many of whom dream of carrying our flag on their backs from a podium stand. Now, this symposium will touch on the various pathways that our youth athletes can take to achieve high performance success and how the Singapore Sport Institute, SSI, and the National Youth Sports Institute, NYSI, are helping our athletes pursue sporting excellence by harnessing sports science. Now, let me share my views on both topics. Now, there are many pathways that our youth can take to achieve sporting aspirations. Now, some youths stick to a sport and excel in it from a very young age. Others enjoy learning new sports and take a longer time to realize their strengths and aptitudes. Take table tennis player Koen Pang, for example. He's a youth athlete who has been on a linear sports pathway, training in the sport since he was 10. And he went on to represent Singapore at the 2018 Youth Olympic Games and was also the first Singaporean to reach #1 in the World Under-18 rankings in 2019. Now, at last week's Singapore Sports Awards 2020, Koen also bagged the Sports Boy of the Year award and the Sports Boy Team of the Year award with teammate Josh Chua. Actually, Martina Veloso actually took a very different path and is an example of how an athlete moves on a non-linear pathway. So in primary school, she had exposure to multiple sports before specializing in shooting at the Singapore Sports School. And Asian Games medalist Constance Lien was also recognized with the Meritorious Award at the Singapore Sports Award. Is also another example of an athlete that moved on a non-linear pathway. Now, she swam competitively at the Singapore Sports School before switching to Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Now, these are just a few examples of the many different pathways that our youth may discover and take to reach their sporting aspirations. Now, to give our youth a better chance to reach elite performance, we must continue to create an environment where youth on different pathways can find their way towards sporting success. So in that vein, it is very heartening to know that NYSI is supporting non-linear pathways, such as through collaborating with the MOE on the Junior Sports Academy to give primary school students the opportunity to learn 4 sports over 2 years. Now, the Singapore Sports School also takes in students with multi-sports background, and older student athletes who also demonstrate talent and passion in another sport are also given the opportunity to develop in new sports. Now, MCCY and Sport SG are committed to forging stronger partnerships with our sport stakeholders to build an ecosystem that encourages and supports the different pathways to high-performance sports. Now, these stakeholders include the NSAs, the National Sports Associations, the SNOC, Singapore National Olympic Council, schools, Active SG, private academies and clubs, coaches, athletes, and parents. So beyond strengthening athlete development pathways within each sport, I urge all of you to think about how we can continue to create more opportunities for movement between sports and how we can reach an environment where our athletes can all reach their fullest potential. Next year, the major games could make their return to our sporting calendars. Now, in the meantime, our athletes have adapted and continued to train very hard. And the sports scientists at SSI have also been playing an important role in helping our athletes become stronger, better, and faster, even as training schedules have been impacted. Now, during the circuit breaker, SSI sports scientists across 5 sport science disciplines: biomechanics, nutrition, physiology, strength and conditioning, and psychology, held live engagement sessions to help athletes train at home and loan strength training equipment for athletes to use. Now, the team of sports psychologists at SSI have also been looking into the mental well-being of athletes as they cope with the frustration and disappointment over the postponement of the major games. Now, this includes webinars for athletes, parents, and coaches on the importance of mental well-being in achieving sporting excellence. Now, our sports scientists have also been helping our athletes optimize their performance through leading-edge science and performance testing, as well as monitoring. So, for instance, SSI developed tailored training sessions with the use of biomechanics tools to help Team Singapore para swimmer Ip Pin Siu increase the range of motion and distance per stroke. Now, the team is also looking to introduce an integrated speedometer with video cameras to improve Pin Siu's performance as she prepares for the next Paralympic Games. Now, our athletes deserve the best training resources and support during these challenging times so that they can be laser focused on achieving their goals at the major games. And I encourage all of you to use this symposium as an opportunity to share and exchange knowledge about how sports science can take our athletes to the next bound. Now, to close, I'd like to thank all of you here today, SSI, NYSI, our sports scientists, NSAs, coaches, all of you for your hard work in developing our youth into elite athletes. Now, your contributions to our nation's sporting excellence are valued, and I hope that you can continue to support our athletes as they train and bring glory to Singapore. So on this note, I thank all of you and I wish you a fruitful 4 days of learning. Thank you.
As you mentioned at the start, the first strand of the symposium is the Youth Athlete Development Conference, which is organised annually by the National Youth Sports Institute. I will now invite Mr Tan Wan Hao, Director of the National Youth Sports Institute, to officially open the Youth Athlete Development Conference. Mr Tan, please.
Hi, morning, everyone. Morning, Paulsec. Yeah, just not to hold everyone back, but as always, I usually speak off the cuff. As those of you who have attended previous segments of these our youth conferences would know. But I thought something important. I won't hold back the proceedings. Much more interesting things to hear from folks like Dr. Harrison and all that. But maybe, as you see behind me, I'm speaking to you from the new facility here at NYSI. So unfortunately, COVID does, did have quite a fair bit of disruption, and we are looking at it sadly in terms of the youth sports sector actually being disrupted and possibly permanently. I think most of us have seen the news coming out of Olympics and everything. They are not only looking at just adjustments, but maybe the formats might totally change. So out of this new sports, like what Paulsec has shared earlier, new sports might happen or totally different formats. So I think as those of us, or all of us who are involved in youth sports, I think we work with very young people, not just athletes. I think it's important to remind them of the multiple pathways to success in Singapore. For the youth as well, it's not just one way to success. I think we need to recognize that diversity and the importance of us in this whole space to make sure that our youth, our younger people have the aspirations and are allowed to dream and dream big and realize their dreams. So, what would usually be a totally full gym in the morning, training facility is actually now empty as we slowly come back to what maybe a new normal might be. So having said that, I think it's important, all of us in this space, in this sector, to think ahead and really be prepared and maybe not hold on to the older, what the older ways of doing things might be, and really open our minds. And with that, I'll hand over. I think Dr. Craig Harrison has some very interesting things to share with us, and something that's probably, especially for those of you who not just work with young kids, but have young kids at home, I think maybe some other perspectives on how kids learn, and not that we are doing it, for no reason. You have realized that even skateboard is in the Olympics now. So, what more do we need to to think about in terms of that kind of spaces, the non-traditional ways of looking at things. So back to Matt, and thanks a lot to the team for organizing this. The work actually started over a year ago in planning all these themes and topics over the 3 or 4 years of the conferences. So thanks a lot to the team at NYSI for pulling it together. Okay, over to you, Matt. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Tan. So